The Biden versus Trump debate. Did everybody have the misfortune of watching that debate? Because if you did, I'm sorry. And you may be owed substantial compensation. Simply call 1-800. No, but seriously, the debate was horrible. It was a mess. Biden did not perform well, unfortunately. And he didn't do a good job at all at quelling people's concerns about his age or his competence, things like this. When it comes to judging both candidates, if we're going to judge them based on the perception of strength and competence, Trump obviously won. Sorry. But if we're going to talk about truthfulness versus untruthfulness, well, now we do have a difference. It is a fact that Donald Trump told significantly more lies during the debate than Biden did. CNN obviously hosted the debate, and they also published Trump made more than 30 false claims during CNN's presidential debate, far more than Biden. So Trump almost made as many false claims as he has in felony counts. What do you know? Trump made more than 30 false claims at the Thursday debate. They included numerous claims that CNN and others have already debunked during the current presidential campaign or prior. He repeated falsehoods that some Democratic-led states allow babies to be executed after birth. Every legal scholar and everybody in general wanted Roe v. Wade overturned. That's bullshit. There were no terror attacks during his presidency. That was probably one of Trump's worst things. That not only did he consistently dodge the questions, but he also made it sound as though he sincerely believed that nothing bad would ever have happened if he were president. And again, if Trump is going to beat Biden at the perception of strength and competence, then Trump also should beat Biden at being truthful. And there's where you see the issue. Trump gave off the perception that he was more competent and stronger than Biden, but he lied far more. Biden was obviously quite sleepy and seemed a little bit confused. He definitely didn't do a great job. However, Trump, when you look at this list of lies that he just kept on spewing, lies that have already been debunked, this speaks delusion. And that's something that I think is very important that I think everybody needs to remember, okay? Biden looks old because he's old. Biden slurs his words and he has a hard time following sentences sometimes. That is true. But that doesn't mean he's necessarily delusional or incompetent. Lying out of your motherfucking ass every chance you get, that speaks to delusion, to incompetence. This makes me question Trump's ability to lead the country. Biden also has the policies. Trump has malice. But let us continue through this first. Trump also added some new false claims, such as his assertions that the US currently has its biggest budget deficit and its biggest trade deficit with China. Both records actually occurred under Trump. Oops. Lying has nothing to do with delusion. People that are delusional don't realize they are lying. You actually have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, wait. So either you're going to tell me that Trump is willingly lying, which would make him malicious and dangerous, or you're going to tell me that Trump doesn't know he's lying, which would then make him delusional. Okay, so you're saying Trump knows he's lying. Nobody really knows. Nobody can get inside of his fucking head and determine that. There's also a lot of evidence that Trump sincerely believes this crazy shit. So let's go over some more information regarding the fallout. For the people on the left that are like freaking out and the people on the right that are celebrating, there have been a lot of previous presidents who have very badly lost their first debates. A really famous one that not a lot of people are aware of is Ronald Reagan. His first debate went terrible. And afterwards, you know what the headlines were saying? New issue. Reagan's age. Is he competent enough to lead the country? The same exact things that we're hearing about Biden now. Now, of course, we can't just appeal to history and be like, well, 'cause it happened then, it's probably going to happen now. Of course, there are different circumstances, but it's also important to remember that it's quite possible, it's very feasible to come back from a bad debate, Reagan was comfortably ahead in the polls that fall, cruising towards re-election even if his age of 73 made him older than any previous president in history. Take notes, America. But his performance that night on stage was alarming to his staff and supporters as much as to the observers in general. The polls narrowed, and the next issue of Time magazine had a cover illustration of two horses neck and neck and the headline, "A Real Race." They've reported that in practice debates, Reagan, quote, suddenly looked old and frail, and that is exactly how Reagan appeared to millions of Americans the following Sunday. The accompanying article said age had not been an issue, but, quote, the president's rambling responses and apparent occasional confusion injected an unpredictable new element into the race. That's a little bit of history for you. Obama also lost his first debate to Mitt Romney and still went on to win the election. So before you start celebrating that Trump has sealed it, he's winning, or if you're on the left and you're freaking out and wearing all black and entering a period of mourning, just hold on a minute, okay? Simply losing a debate does not mean it's the end of everything. And that's what I would say to the people who are reacting to this abysmal debate performance by saying that Biden should step down. Statistics already show that there is no other Democrat that's going to do as well against Donald Trump compared to Biden. Even with all of Biden's issues, trying to put a new Democrat on the ticket would be a disaster. That would be just asking to lose. And then another thing, I have never said anything other than, yeah, Biden's old. He's certainly not my first choice. I don't even think Joe Biden is Joe Biden's first choice. But even if Joe Biden is a little bit old and sometimes is a little bit confused or whatnot, one, you're not really voting for an individual president. We don't have kings and dictators anymore. You're voting for an administration. And if you look at what the administration has done, you see positive benefits. I know that people don't like hearing that, and there's a lot of people that are in denial about it, but it's true. If you compare inflation over the past 2 years to now, wages are surpassing inflation. When you ask Trump supporters, or even Trump himself, what was so great about Trump? They all point to the economy. They all point to the low unemployment rate. All of this was already here when Biden and Obama were president. During the Obama-Biden administration, that is when we started to see these economic benefits. There was a recession. It's an economic fact that after a recession, the economy comes back and it comes back stronger. And that is what we were seeing. Trump simply took office. He inherited a good economy and actually made things worse, because then Trump introduced his tax cuts. Even though the economy was doing great, even though we had significantly low unemployment, Trump still introduced tax cuts to wealthy Americans and to corporations. And that paved the way for inflation. People want to blame Biden for inflation because of the COVID packages and whatnot. But that is not the full story. Donald Trump, his 2017 tax cuts helped set the stage for today's inflation. Back when the Trump tax cuts were being debated, economists warned the cuts could eventually lead to out-of-control inflation. And economists said the cuts would force the government to borrow to deal with emergencies. In 2021, ProPublica reported the national debt rose by almost $7.8 trillion during Trump's time in office. That didn't help the government's ability to borrow. So when they point to the benefits that Donald Trump brought with the economy, he actually did nothing. The economy was already doing great. Trump took over, he took office, and then he introduced tax cuts that literally made inflation worse. And what we've seen from Biden's presidency thus far has not been bad. Wages have outpaced inflation over the past year. Although inflation initially outpaced wages, wages caught up, ultimately rising 8.8% compared with inflation at 8.5%. April 2022 to April 2024. Trump inherited a good economy and set the stage for inflation. Biden inherited a bad economy and is now bringing things back under control. These are real and legitimate results that matter to people. This matters to everyday Americans. The economy is a really important thing. Of course, there's still inflation. Of course, the economy isn't perfect, but the economy is returning back to normal. And Biden's policies seem to be helping in that so far. Even if you care about immigration, look at the rates of immigration under Trump's presidency. It didn't change that much. Southwest border apprehensions more than doubled in 2019, driven by increase in families. Look at the rates here. There's a big spike in 2014. 2015, it went down. 16, Trump's president's up. 17 down a little bit. 18 up. 19 way up. Where did Trump's big policies stop the immigration? The illegal immigrants. When did this happen? It didn't. And then on top of this now, you have the recent Supreme Court ruling, which basically decided that former presidents have broad immunity from all kinds of laws, pretty much canceling out the Trump trial and setting a very dangerous precedent that now the executive branch can essentially operate however it pleases with little to no accountability. Not only is that a dangerous precedent, but Trump has already promised to do malicious things. And now he doesn't need to be held accountable. Take a look at Project 2025. Take a look at what the Republicans want to do with the government. Take a look at how much power they want to grant the executive branch. They want to push us closer and closer to authoritarianism. They want to give the executive branch more and more power. That's an unbalanced government. That's literally contrary to how the fucking founders wanted the government to operate, with the multiple branches and the checks and balances. Trump has already vowed to do bad things, malicious things. And now with this Supreme Court ruling essentially establishing that he can do things that he wants and then pretty much not ever have to face any accountability, what is stopping him? So it's not really about voting for Biden as a big Biden fan, but if it comes down to it, and yes, it's shallow, but it sucks that our only options are Trump and Biden, but when it comes down to it, you're voting against Trump. Trump is malicious and dangerous. Biden is old and a little confused sometimes. Not a great speaker. Okay, policies speak louder than words. And Biden has the policies to demonstrate how things are improving under his presidency. Trump has nothing. He has, well, I took over a good economy and then introduced policies that contributed to inflation and fucked over the everyday Americans even more. We'll go ahead and look over this article. Biden's backfire, top takeaways from a shocking first debate. Why it matters. On the biggest stage in politics, with a rule set and date specifically requested by the Biden campaign, the 81-year-old president poured gasoline on Democrats' worst fears about his age and capacity to lead. Biden's unusually hoarse voice, which a source close to the president attributed to a cold, established an immediate contrast with Trump, who is 3 years younger than Biden. Yeah, I noticed that too. Like, Biden really did sound cold. Sound cold. Biden did sound sick. Panic set in among Democrats when Biden froze during an answer just minutes into the debate. Trump was quick to capitalize on it. Yep. Former Obama campaign manager called Biden's performance a DEFCON 1 moment on MSNBC. I'm not going to spend all night with you talking about the last 90 minutes when I've been watching the last 3.5 years of performance, Vice President Kamala Harris said in a testy interview with CNN.
But the president of the United States was not able to make that case to Donald Trump on the stage tonight. I mean, you debated against then Vice President Vice President Biden 4 years ago, and he was a very different person on the stage 4 years ago when you debated him. You must, I mean, that's certainly true, is it not?
Anderson, the point has to be performance in terms of what a president does. A president who incites an insurrection against the Capitol. No, but I got the point that you're making.
Yeah, and right. What Anderson's getting at is, and it's true, because I also am saying, hey, it's more about what he does and not really his debate performance. But I'm actually glad this was brought up here because I also want to, of course, acknowledge that many, almost the majority of Americans don't see it that way. They see it as, how do you debate? And that means you're a good president. You debate bad, you're a bad president. They don't make that nuanced separation. And although that separation is incredibly important, it's also incredibly important for somebody in Biden's position to recognize the fact that the majority of Americans are not nuanced like that. That he has to give off a perception of competence and a good president, because unfortunately, that's how doo-doo-brained a lot of the fucking American public is.
Point that you're making about a 1.5 hour debate tonight. I'm talking about 3.5 years of performance in work that has been historic.
But
whether
is that
it be
the man who we saw on the stage tonight, is that the person you see in meetings every day?
The person that you saw on the debate stage that has, for the last 3.5 years, up until today, performed in a way that has been about, whether it be in the Oval Office, negotiating bipartisan deals so that we have an infrastructure, a real infrastructure plan where we're putting trillions of dollars on the streets of America to upgrade our infrastructure. Whether it be the person I see in the Oval Office who is meeting with heads of the military and the intelligence community and in the Situation Room, ensuring the safety of America. The person I see in Joe Biden on the world stage, convening world leaders who often ask for his advice, most recently just during the G7 conference. So I'm not going to spend all night with you talking about the last 90 minutes when I've been watching the last 3.5 years of performance.
I already see like a massive problem. Biden, his team, his administration, they need to just acknowledge that Biden's old. Like, when they argue with it, like how Kamala Harris here is getting so defensive, it makes everybody else feel gaslit. Tell me it wouldn't be effective for Joe Biden himself to just be like, hey, I'm Joe Biden. I'm old. They already did acknowledge that Biden is old. No, they didn't. They have never fully acknowledged his age and his decline. They should also point to the amazing people he has around him, but they love to gaslight. Biden did say that at the rally. No, I know that Biden has acknowledged before that he's old, but I mean, like, it might help to, I don't know, even if they did make some jokes about it or memes on it, kind of, like, the self-awareness also shows a level of competence, I think. Okay, it's now coming to my attention that Biden has since acknowledged that he's old, and I'm very pleased to hear that the Biden administration has heard my suggestion and has somehow gone back in time and done it already. That is impressive, but also speaks volumes to the level of power and influence that I wield. Finally, somebody listen to me.
By the way, I've been doing this a long time. I know I don't look that old, I know. I'm a little under 103. I know I look like I'm only still 29, but think about it. I know I'm 198 years old. After all, I believe in the First Amendment. Not just because my good friend Jimmy Madison wrote it. I come to the job with more experience than any president in American history. Doesn't make me better or worse, but it gives me few excuses. You say I'm ancient. I say I'm wise. You say I'm over the hill. Don Lemon would say that's a man in his prime. I get it. Try being 110 and doing it again.
Well, I'm very happy to see that. At least they're showing some self-awareness. And I think that by continuing in that direction, that is going to do a lot of positives for the Biden administration. Americans don't like feeling like they're being gaslit or lied to, or like that they're just being told they didn't see what they obviously saw. So by showing self-awareness, you also demonstrate competence. It's a win-win, and I can respect that. This was an attempt, but that is just some of the fallout and my general thoughts on the recent Biden debate debacle. where's Hunter on this step down or riding with Biden? Not really riding with Biden, but just this is the way things are. These are the two options, and don't vote for, if you don't like Biden, don't vote for Biden then, vote against Trump. Vote for Biden to vote against Trump. There is no other alternative. But now I'm also thinking that now with the Democrats freaking out about this, like having a total meltdown, maybe this will be a wake-up call also that like, okay, they need to start nominating some better people.